at the end of the Depression.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And when they, I can remember when they tried to unionize. Well, that was really dirty. They had, I guess, I don't know what kind of guys were killing people. And anyway, my daddy was locked up in Ford Rouge plant with some of they went on strike.
The union was trying to get in. They were trying to get the union.
So your father went on strike to bring in the union.
No, to keep it away.
To keep it away.
And he stayed in the ones that crossed the picket line. Mm-hmm. Once they got in there, they stayed in there, and then they brought food to them and all that stuff.
So your father had worked already for Ford, and they were trying to, and some of the workers were trying to bring in the union, and he was against the union.
Right, and then he said, before it was over with, he said it was the best thing that ever happened to him.
But they didn't understand it. They didn't understand it was good for them. If they would listen to what the union people that didn't want it, they would listen to what they were saying. That's all they knew.
So basically, okay. So this is my understanding of unions and how they got started was that unions were originally created by many of which were Caucasians to keep the jobs with them. But you're saying that this particular union for Ford, they're trying to bring it in to better the workers' situation. And your father didn't understand that that's what was happening because he was listening to the people at Ford. Interesting. Okay.
Well, they didn't know whether they were going to lose their jobs or what. They didn't know. They didn't really understand it because it was something new.
So when you said people were being killed, what people?
They had thugs fighting them, beating them and all that stuff.
Beating the workers?
Yeah, well, the ones that was striking.
So the union people had...
No, not the union. Henry Ford's thugs.
Oh, so Henry Ford hired people basically to come beat up people who wanted to be in the union.
Right. Then they had to have that happen.
Well, then that makes sense why your dad was like, I don't want the union, if I'm going to get beat up for trying to be in the union, Is that kind of like how it was? Because he was like, oh, well, the Ford is telling me the union is bad, and so I don't want to be a part of the union. And then you also see people who want the union getting beat up for wanting it. Wow. So how did your father ever talk about what it took to get a job at Ford? Or did he just go for an interview? Or
I don't know. All I can remember is we were getting welfare, and you know what welfare is?
Yes, I do.
And he finally got a job, but he had to work 2 weeks before he get paid. And so the welfare worker came to the house, and I said, "My daddy got a job."
Oh boy, that was it.
I didn't know.
No more job for you.
So no more help for y'all.
That's it.
Wow.
I was so.
Well, you just a little good.
Right. You're probably proud, right? Yeah, you're probably proud for your dad to have a job. Wow. So they just cut it off from there, and he hadn't got paid yet. So you needed that. I know your dad looked at you and said, "Really?"
I don't remember them doing anything to me, but I thought, oh my God.
Wow. That's so interesting to hear about this because again, I don't have that first person experience except for what I basically learned for myself and taught myself from reading books and so forth. Did your dad own did you guys have a home or apartment?
Well, he was renting a house. It was real small. And he bought the house, and then he moved. It was sitting way back from the street, and he moved it up, and then built onto the back of it and the front. And he just had I can remember the front. He just had the people to what do you want to call it? But anyway, I had to help him put the roof on and the flooring. I was like a handyman, the boy he didn't have.
Until the boy came along.
What boy?
Me. I used to help him too. I truly did.
Anyway, and my uncle. Oh, my uncle. Oh boy, Uncle
You
Bo.
wasn't having when we put that roof on though.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
Uncle Bo. My daddy had one brother.
Mm-hmm.
He was. My father was a minister, and he made corn liquor, and
Corn liquor.
yes, and he taught me how to make it.
Sit down.
But he was in prison
Mm-hmm.
because of the corn liquor. You know, he was a bootlegger,
Right, bootlegger. Yep.
and he broke out of prison.
He broke out of prison.
And I don't know how he found my father in Michigan, but I can remember our front door had a glass at the top,
Uh-huh.
and somebody knocked on the door, and Mama was in the kitchen. So I ran out there and looked, and that man looked like my daddy, but I know that wasn't my daddy. So I ran back and got Mama. I don't know how my uncle found her.
I don't either, but he did from the outside. Must was it Alabama, Arkansas?
I think it was Arkansas.
Uh-huh.
But
You know,
anyway,
the levy camp. They didn't call it jail, then they called it levy camp.
Levy?
Levy camp.
Levy camp. What is that?
You ain't never saw the old movies.
No, I have. Like I've learned about
They
what they
did.
call peonage slavery. Right?
he was on a chain gang.
Right, exactly. So what I learned like from like peonage slavery, that's where they used to make up laws, like vagrancy laws, or if you didn't have a job and it wasn't a job by a white man, you would be put in jail. If they stopped you on the street and said, "Show me your working papers," meaning your job papers, where you actually had a job working for a white man, maybe as a plantation crop or something along those lines. And if you didn't have those papers, they took you to jail. If you were standing outside in front of a store and you were just standing there, that would be what they call loitering. So you would go to jail for that. And then the jail time, the jail sentences would be like 8 months, 9 years for simple things, right? If you're just accused of raping a white woman, then it would automatically be
You better not look at her.
exactly. So all these laws they were just creating, they were just putting on the books just to make it so that they can still enable slavery to happen, right? Because according to the 14th Amendment, the 13th Amendment, I believe it is, slavery is legal even today, slavery is abolished except for as punishment for a crime. So all the people that are in jail right now, they're essentially slaves, right? So from what I've learned just in reading and learning over time, and what I taught myself, because they didn't teach us these things in school, the black people were criminalized, especially in the early 19th century, were criminalized and made to be lawbreakers. And the whole situation with welfare, right? So your father, because he now has a job, they basically came in and said, okay, you no longer can get assistance, right? So they put all these things in place to try and break the family apart and create these laws that really only apply to black people. Because
I think what you're talking about wasn't welfare. It was like aid to dependent children, the ADC, where the man couldn't be in the house.
Okay, so they call it ADC.
Yeah. But welfare
That way later.
Dependent
This wasn't
children.
even existing when you talk about now. ADC wasn't.
Was it in existence now or back then?
What you telling you about? What you told them that daddy had a job?
Uh-huh.
There wasn't no such thing as ADC then.
It was just welfare.
Welfare.
Ah.
and that was the man could be in the house, and
Oh, okay. At that time, what year was this that they took the welfare away?
I don't know.
How old were you?
I don't know. I don't even know when he took it away.
Oh, okay. But this was after the whooping cough, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 6
Just-
then when
okay.
I said that.
Okay. And so, but continue on. I'm sorry. Your uncle, he came by. You guys didn't know how he found you. He was knocking on the door. You said you went and got your mom.
Yeah. But then when we moved to White Cloud, Michigan, he started making whiskey again.
Oh.
And his
Uncle what?
Uncle Bo.
Uncle Bo. Uncle Bo. Leonard.
Well, actually, A.B. said that wasn't his name. His name was Sylvester.
Sylvester.
Mm-hmm. And anyway,
And that was just a nickname they called him, Bo.
Bo was a nickname.
But anyway, his girlfriend got mad at him and blew the whistle on him. And we were in White Cloud. We were out in the country. How far was the nearest person?
About 3 miles from the nearest person.
Anyway, 3 miles. Wow.
Anyway,
It was nice, so I loved
when we
it.
got home from school, they had broke up he had up in the, well, it was like in the loft. He had this, that's where he was making the whiskey.
Yes.
And then he had made the still in one of the sheds. And they had dumped out that mash.
Mash.
That was what he used to make whiskey.
Oh.
Cracked corn.
Cracked corn.
And sugar. Anyway, and we had a dog. And that dog ate that mash and was drunk. That was the funniest thing I've ever seen. He would be leaning over and he'd just go.
We put it in, we were raising pigs. Put it in the hog clap and they ate it. And they was staggering out and hollering, whoa! And they were crazy. We put it in the car and they got drunk too.
I don't remember that part. I just remember that dog.
Sure did.
That's
What was
funny.
that got drunk?
Huh?
What got drunk?
The pigs.
The pigs.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was really funny though. But Ada, his girlfriend, she blew the whistle on him, and they took him back to Arkansas. And Daddy went to the governor of Michigan, and he wrote a letter to the warden down there and told him they better not. He was talking about they whip him.
Yeah.
And he told him he better not do it to him. So they didn't touch Uncle Bo.
So that's another part of what happened during peonage slavery, during that time period, where they would. I mean, it was. They said it was worse than slavery, and what they meant by that was that during slavery you were considered property, right? You're owned by somebody, right? And you are a quote unquote asset, which meant that you bring in money because they would just use your labor and they wouldn't pay you. They'll put you in worse conditions, and housing conditions that were horrible, and so they would basically just work you sun up to sundown.
But after the 13th Amendment, they sharecroppers.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yes.
I think that's what Grandma Mary was doing with the sharecropper.
Where they would work the land.
And then Mama's, that was Daddy's mother, Grandma. And then Mama's mother, she married what was his name?
Henry.
No. What was it? Little Henry George. Henry?
Yeah, that's what Arkansas was named after him.
I didn't know his name was Henry. But anyway, he was a yard child. You know what a yard child is?
No.
By the master. You born.
Because he looked like he was white. He was half white.
They called him a yard
child.
A yard child.
He goes to these women, these slave women, in the yards. You know what they call it, the yard.
Right. That's where they work.
Yeah, but anyway, she married him. But Mama said that she had to work in the field, and then at a certain time she would go in the house and cook. And then after they all came in and ate, and she cleaned up, she had to go back out in the field.
Yeah, they come home for lunch.
So they called him a yard child. Was this considered during slavery time?
No.
Or is it just after?
He was born probably during the slavery time.
He was born, they said he was like in a shirtwaist, before he wore pants, when they,
No. Go ahead, cause I'm 32. So these terms and things like that may be new to me, but it's really good because it's really informing me about the time that you guys grew up, and the context of it.
and then we
That's
had
really
an
important.
aunt too, she was a slave, and Mariah.
And Mariah was a son.
That was my daddy's mother's sister.
And
Your
she,
dad's mother's sister.
and she said that they,
Right, your father's aunt.
12 years old when freedom was declared.
she said that they locked women and men slaves in a house, to breed,
Right, yeah.
and they couldn't breed her. She fought. They couldn't breed her.
Black self-respect. Gotta love it. Wow. To me, like I've been doing a lot of study and research about our history. Like this is one of the reasons why this is really so important to me, because I'm learning things about at least Cody's side of the family that's now going to be these guys, that's their ancestors, and even my ancestors, and to some degree. And it's really, really important that like these details that we don't forget and we don't let go of these things. I know in our society they tell us, "Oh, forget." That was such a long time ago. Yeah. But what are the things that they keep alive? They keep alive the Holocaust. Don't dare tell a Jewish person forget about it. That was such a long time ago. No, they have monuments, they have museums. What do we have to show for these things and to learn about these things? So even if it's only by us talking about it and passing it down, however painful it may be, how much we can bear to talk about in terms of the truth, I think we must bear that. We must understand that, because it's really important that they don't grow up in a society that says, "Hey, I'm colorblind. I don't see color. You got Barack Obama as president and any other black president that comes before, so we're all good." When not necessarily that's not true, and they need to understand that there were a group of people that suppressed them, that kept them down, and kept all of us down, right? And that just doesn't go away because, I can buy a car now, or I can buy a home now, because we know from the textbooks and reading and history that we're still at the bottom of the barrel, if you will, in terms of financial and so forth. So these things that I'm learning about today, for me at least, it's amazing to hear, because my mom and dad didn't really talk too much about this type of stuff. I think they kind of like tried to shield me and my brothers from learning about some of these things. I know my dad went through a ton of racism on the job, and he would just tell us bits and pieces here and there. But he was very prideful. He didn't want to, show that, and that makes you feel like less of a man, I'm sure, So
you should. I talked to my grandson. His study. He's working on his master's now, and it's
what's his name?
His name is Edward Withers.
Edward Rivers.
And his what did he call it? The studies of black history studies. I think. And that's his major.
Oh wow! I would love to talk to him. I would love to talk to him. But yes, you were saying. So we were talking about your Uncle Bo, who your father wrote to the governor, said, "Hey, do not whip my brother," because that was commonplace to happen, that they whipped them. And they did. I could go on, but I want this to be your interview. But I understand exactly what you're talking about. And
when the people were working like sharecroppers, they were still slaves, because when they would get through at the end of the year,
they owe more.
Oh, right. And this was my mother's best friend, my only friend. She hired a man with a truck to go down south, I don't know what state it was, and get her sister and her family. He went down there in the middle of the night and put them in this truck and covered them over with a tarp and got them out of there.
And that was in the 30s.
What were their names?
Well, the name was Tate.
Because there's a story in a book called Black and White as I See It, written by Richard Williams, Venus and Serena Williams' dad. The famous tennis players, the two black girls that plays tennis. Richard Williams, their dad, his mom and father, that's what happened to them. That's because his mom and father were sharecroppers, and in his book he talked about that very thing, and that's how they escaped. They escaped in the middle of the night, and were able to get away, because it wasn't like you were employed. It was really like you were a slave. Like if you tried to leave, you that could be your life.
Right, that's right.
Wow.
And she had about 8 or 9 kids.
Oh, gosh, I don't know, 9 or 10 of them.
It was a whole bunch of them.
And
The husband and the wife and all the
put them
kids.
all in that back of that truck and put them over the top and brought them out of
And
there.
Mr. Maddox did it.
And this was who was this again? Just to make sure.
The family name was Tate. Mr. Maddox.
Tate.
And were they related to you all, or?
My
No,
mother.
this is my mother's friend. She was telling you.
Mother friend.
My mother's best friend had somebody to go down south to pick her
She
sister up.
paid them to go down there
Her
and get
sister and
them.
her husband and her nieces and nephews.
Wow. So, after your dad went and talked to the governor, like that was also a brave thing to do.
He didn't go talk to him. He wrote him a
called
letter.
Oh, he wrote him a letter. Wow. And this is when you guys lived in like
In Inkster.
in Inkster, way out in the.
No, this was
Right.
Oh, okay. Okay.
About, 20 minutes from here.
Wow.
It's not even 20 minutes.
Wow. And what do you remember about growing up at that time? Like, were you in school now at this time, or were you still young?
What time frame are we in right now? I mean, we're talking, what he's talking about. He wants to know, what do I remember about that time?
Well, I've been jumping all over the place.
No, so we were talking about your brother or your dad's brother.
Up in White Car, making she was up there.
Oh, tell him about being snowed in.
Yeah, well, eventually, Uncle Bo, when he was a young man, now, from my understanding, when he was incarcerated, some white man had asked him, Uncle had a horse and a wagon. He said he wanted him to move some bales of cotton for him. And he would pay him. So Uncle Bo did. The police got him. The man told him Uncle stole it. And that's how he got in jail. But when he escaped from the chain gang, he got married to his brother. And he was doing well, making this corn liquor and what have you, until this woman
Turned him
in, and he ended up back in jail.
for something he never even did.
For something he never did. Well, I didn't know why he was there.
Yeah.
But I thought it was because he was selling corn whiskey.
What?
Why he ended up in jail.
Yeah, I think Ada turned him in.
No, the original.
Not in the South, no, he wasn't.
Oh.
Well, anyway.
Wow. So what else do you remember about being snowed in? You're going to talk about being snowed in.
Well, that jumps a few years ahead.
Okay, and that's
I
fine.
live up north in White Cloud, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 13 when we moved up there. Yeah. That was 1946. No, Van graduated in 46, so it was
47.
40.
Graduated in